Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to be looking at 3 unconventional tricks that you can use in Databricks. The first being how to quickly upload data, the second being games and cool things you can do with HTML, and the third being dynamic widgets. So to upload data the conventional way, what you would do is go to the dashboard and you click create a table, and then you can create the name, which will get stored in the file store, and you browse for the file, and then you create the schema, and then it'll come up here, and then you can delete it once you're done with it. And sometimes it's a little bit too time consuming, especially if you're trying to do things quickly, or you're on a deadline and somebody kind of throws some data at you and saying, hey, can you fix this, or can you run some queries on it or some joins. So you can just copy the data, paste it in here, and then we can just hit run. And then this function, what it'll do is, kind of had it up from the last time, so let me run this again. So what it'll do is, it'll put all of our data inside of a table. And how it does that, it goes line by line, and here it kind of splits by the return. So in each one of these lines, there's an invisible /n, and inside of all of these spaces is invisible /t for tab. And so it just splits it by the tabs and the returns. And then we don't want the first and the last string, because here is a return, and then we don't want this empty string right here. So that's basically it. One thing that you do want to do is, so the first line here, that's our headers, and what we can do is headers equals true, and what that'll do is it'll just bring that up here. So we'll have our headers, and let's just say that if we want to replace headers with something, we could always do that. So let me just get a shorter, so let's just get the first 3. And where this is really useful is, for example, if you want the last names, maybe you want the ones with Y. So you can see here that it's 1 through 20 and 20 through 42 and etc. Sometimes when you save the file as an Excel sheet, it won't have just this 1, 20, 40. It'll have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to 20, and then you won't get the data that you want. But if you just copy it here and you paste it up here, it'll be a little bit quicker, and you don't have to worry about like the filtering being or persisting when you do that. So, and if we want headers, so let's just say we want like first, and let's just say we want last, well, not least, but last. And then for the third one, let's say we want something like employment. So you can see that we can specify our headers as well. And that's it for quickly uploading the data. Next we can go on to cool things we can do with HTML. So we can do something like h1, and let's just say like hello world. And you can see that below is going to output our HTML. And you can look at all the awesome things that Databricks can do if you do LS Magic. So you can do HTML, you can do Perl, you can do Python, you can do Ruby, you can time your stuff, you can also run shell commands. You can do a lot of cool things with this. Of course, SQL and Scala and R. And with HTML, it's easiest to do something like this if you're using Python, and just throw in a string. So one thing that I did at work is I kind of shared this code with some of my coworkers. Is we can go to like the running T-Rex game, and we can get the code for that, which is all in HTML, and we can input it here. And then what we could do is we can run the cell, and it'll be the exact same game that Google uses when their searches is down, or your Chrome browser is offline. So you can see it's the same sounds as well. And the code up here is pretty long, and what you can do is you can put it actually inside of another notebook. And let's go back up. And you could only do that with the, I guess it's like the premium version of Databricks. And to do something like that, you can do like db utils and then notebook, and then you can do run, and you just put the URI to notebook. And what that'll do is it'll run the whole notebook, and it'll output something. If you go db utils.notebook.exit, so this is where you put the HTML. You'd put it all right here, and you can, all you would really need is just this line in the notebook, and it'll run it. Of course, it'll only output the string, so you would have to do something like display HTML. And then that's how you can get this game if you're wanting to kind of simplify it and just do it by one line. And you can do this with a lot of things. Like if somebody's having a birthday, you can go in CodePen and you can kind of search for like birthday cards, and you can just copy the HTML. So like birthday cards, and you can kind of just like pick something. God, these are not good birthday cards. Yeah, so I don't know, something like this. And what you can do is you can just copy the code. One thing that you are going to have to worry about is the SCSS. So that's the preprocessor for the cascading style sheets. And one way you can get around that is if you open up the console, and I think it's sources, and then you go down here, and I believe it's one of these. No, it's not that. Might be. Yeah, so it's right here, and you can see that they did a few things differently. Like here, this is all like SCSS, and that's not inside of the regular CSS. So for example, if we copy this, I don't know what's going to happen actually if we go to a different page, because this is JavaScript. Yeah, let's see what that looks like actually. Display HTML. We'll see how that looks. Okay, cool. So that actually did work. And of course, like this is kind of like a birthday page rather than a card. So, and you can do the same thing for here. Just go to here, and then it's going to be in the sources. It's going to be right here, the CodePen, and where was it? I think it's something like this, and this looks like it's it. So yeah, you just copy this whole thing, and then you paste it in. And okay, so we can close this here. We can close that. We can also close this. And I think that we are finished with number 1 and number 2. So the next step is going to be the dynamic widgets. So with widgets, it's kind of sometimes practice that you have almost everything that you can query the table by if you're doing this for like non-technical users. So if you have non-technical users at your place of employment, they can just put in the date like this instead of doing you know, like the SQL commands or Python commands themselves. So, but this can kind of get cluttered if you have like a lot of like searches, and let's just say there's only like 1 or 2 like unique identifiers that you need. What you could do is like remove these, and then let's copy this here. And what you can do is let's like have the date, and whoops, kind of fat finger that. And what we'll have is a drop down. So we'll have a drop down of search by, and what we'll want to search by is, let's just say we want the transaction ID, or we can search by the order ID, or what we can do is also search by the SKU. And let's call this argument search. And then we're just going to get the argument. We can just do it like this. Okay, so if search, what we're going to do is we're going to display a text. And what that's going to be like is it'll be the ID. And we'll expect the user to input the ID. So let's see what I did down here. Search by transaction. Ah, yes. So we need to have the empty string in here as well. Let's do this. Okay. So if we go here, it'll prompt us to type in the ID that we want. So you can see that this is responsive, or I should say dynamic. And the reason why it's dynamic is because on widget change we run the accessed commands, and you would want this to be right here. You probably wouldn't want this to be in the run notebook, because anytime you make a subtle change, it'll run the whole notebook, and it can kind of get quite irritating, especially like for me. I found that. So and what we can also do is we can do like validation. So let's just say your data is partitioned by date. We could do something like this. So if search, and then let's just say we want to make sure. So if not date. So if the date isn't there, what we could do is we can create another drop down. And what that drop down is called is like, are you sure that you want to? Are you sure you want to query without a partition? So this is kind of like saying, hey user, you really want to think twice about what you're running. So let's do this. Yes. Okay. So then if we don't have to instantiate the other argument. So if and here's another thing that you can do. So what we could do is we can put this here, and this will show up as the widget, but what we can refer to it as is sure, no, yes. So something like this. So we can get the argument like that, and if get argument equals yes, then we can run the command. So run command. Let's run this. Okay. So for example, let's just do 2020, 2000, and then on that change, so actually, yes, we want to have it right here. Okay. So we can make this dynamic. So if we erase this, it'll kind of prompt us to, let's just say transaction ID, and then let's just say this is our transaction ID. So we're gonna go to run it, and it's not gonna do anything, and because it prompts us to say pick yes or no, and only when we pick yes does it run the command. So here we can do kind of some validation, and that is it for this video, I believe. All the code I will leave in the description, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah.